Hello, my name is Dr. Timothy Holley, Associate Professor of Music and Interim Chair of the Department of Music at North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina. I'm also a member of the NCCMI Board of Directors and a chamber music coach and concert curator. I am pleased to present this video invitation and introduction to the North Carolina Chamber Music Institute Impact Series Concert 2, Chamber Music Treasures in celebration of the Martin Luther King holiday, scheduled for Monday, January 20th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. in the sanctuary of Hayes Barton United Methodist Church, located at 2209 Fairview Road in Raleigh, North Carolina. This annual concert series was inaugurated in 2020, less than 2 months before the global shutdown caused by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Each program has featured selections of chamber music by composers of color, African Americans, and Afro-Europeans of various nationalities. This year's MLK Impact Series concert opens with a work of profound tribute. The Elegy for Strings was written with single intent, but now has a double effect. Composer and violinist Timothy Baker was a Columbia, South Carolina native, an alumnus of the University of South Carolina and the Eastman School of Music, where he was a student of Professor Charles Castleman. He composed the work in memory of his mentor, Mr. Freddie Grace Jr., who passed in 2009, a distinguished veteran string teacher and athletic coach in the Richlands I School District. Baker passed away in October 2019 after struggling with Crohn's disease. I knew, admired, and laughed with both gentlemen on way too few opportunities for such blessed encounter. The next work on the program is titled At the Purchaser's Option, a song cast in folk style by Greensboro, North Carolina native Rhiannon Giddens. At the Purchaser's Option was arranged for string quartet by Jacob Garchick on a commission through the 50 for the Future program for the Kronos Quartet in celebration of the ensemble's 50th anniversary. Its title makes direct references to chattel slavery and its ironic role in the development of American socioeconomic history. The song's unsung lyric speaks of a black woman's thoughts and feelings about being bought and sold at the purchaser's option. The repeated refrain resounds with greatest force and intensity. You can take my body, you can take my bones, you can take my blood, but not my soul. Following the purchaser's option, the WCPE String Quartet will perform Strum by composer Jessie Montgomery, which draws upon and celebrates the expressive potential of plucked and bowed instruments in her unique and highly idiomatic approach to string writing. Her writing is clearly influenced by American concert and folk music, but the spirit of dance and movement fuses strum into a flexible narrative that begins in fleeting nostalgia and then transforms itself into ecstatic celebration. Ms. Montgomery is the current composer in residence for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and has also been featured as one of the Blacknificent seven internationally renowned African American composers whose works of diverse vision and distinction speak to this world's need to continue pressing forward toward a place of fuller inclusion and celebrated humanity through the arts and music. Next is the variations on two Puerto Rican folk themes of composer Regina Harris Baiocchi for violin and cello duo. It is one of the two inner movements from the four-movement work Sketches for Piano Trio, written in 2012. It opens and closes with the first theme, titled Preciosa, which is an exuberant rhythmic declaration. The second theme, El Lamento Borincano, features the solo violin in more of a habanera-like dance. These folk melodies of Rafael Hernandez Marin, who lived from 1892 to 1965, reflect the significant Afro-Puerto Rican musical impact of the Great Migration upon Harlem during the early decades of the 20th century. Hernandez was one of numerous musicians that were members of the Clef Club Orchestra and the 369th Infantry Band, also known as the Hellfighters Band, who, under the direction of Lieutenant Colonel James Reese Europe, introduced American jazz to France during the closing months of World War I. The middle movement of the Sonata for Cello and Piano by Leslie Adams is part of this work's interesting and somewhat backward developmental history. It was written in 1963 during Adams' graduate school years, but the remainder of the work would be completed 15 years later. Leslie Adams was a champion of lyrical song, best known for his tonally centered, highly expressive music that emphasizes poetic transformation. In his instrumental music, contemporary compositional techniques are often fused with elements of American folk song, rhythm and blues, American musical theater, and jazz. The next composer on this evening's program, Frederick Tillis, matured as a composer during the civil rights era of the 1960s. In 1968, he deliberately adopted a compositional style rooted in the thematic and harmonic materials of the African American spiritual. His interest in the transformative potential of the spiritual led him to embark upon a series of 33 spiritual fantasies for various vocal and instrumental combinations. Wade in the Water is the second movement of the spiritual fantasy number 12 for string quartet, which was composed in the year 1995. The rhythm, melody, harmonic structure, and expressive drive of the spiritual in this movement creates a chamber music tour de force via an instrumental medium traditionally associated with Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, Bartok, and the folk music that somehow manages to sneak into the world of their art music that isn't as different from American folk music as we might suppose. Our guest composer-performer James Dargan has provided this note about the Dreamkeeper songs and his arrangement of The Promise by Tracy Chapman. Quote, I wrote my Dreamkeeper songs back in 2016 because I needed teaching material. My third and fourth graders needed some examples of different kinds of text setting and piano textures. And since James Mercer Langston Hughes wrote his poetry collection, The Dreamkeepers for Children, it turned out to fit the needs of my students very well. I drew from Franz Schubert, Eric Satie, the blues, Gustav Mahler, and spirituals when writing these songs, and I kept them short because, after all, what kid wants to sit still for hours? Singer-songwriter Tracy Chapman got her first instrument, a ukulele, from her mother when Tracy was 3, and Tracy began playing the guitar and writing songs around the age of 8. While studying at Tufts University, Chapman would busk around Cambridge, Massachusetts, and after college, she became one of the few black artists on the folk music scene and eventually became one of the genre's emergent stars. I first heard The Promise on Chapman's 4th album, and I've loved her music ever since. In the spirit of community and communal song, this program closes with Lift Every Voice and Sing of James Weldon Johnson and John Rosamond Johnson. James Weldon Johnson penned the poem in 1900 for recitation by Stanton Preparatory School students in Jacksonville, Florida. His own account of the poem's composition and gathering popularity follows here. Quote, a group of young men in Jacksonville, Florida, arranged to celebrate President Abraham Lincoln's birthday in 1900. My brother, J. Rosamond Johnson, and I decided to write a song to be sung at the exercises. I wrote the words and he wrote the music. Our New York publisher, Edward B. Marks, made mimeographed copies for us, and the song was taught to and sung by a chorus of 500 colored school children. Shortly afterwards, my brother and I moved away from Jacksonville to New York, and the song passed out of our minds. But the school children of Jacksonville kept singing it. They went off to other schools and sang it. They became teachers and taught it to other children. Within 20 years, it was being sung over the South and in some other parts of the country. Today, the song, popularly known as the Negro National Hymn, is quite generally used. The lines of this song repay me in an elation, almost of exquisite anguish, whenever I hear them sung by Negro children. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, had begun to promote it as the Negro National Anthem in 1919 for its defiantly hopeful singing insistence in spite of the ironic timing of its use, a time of extreme race violence, and that period of time the poet himself nicknamed the Red Summer. It was and remains a statement of deep faith in our profound American identity and agency expressed in its 3 verses. Again, I cordially invite you to attend the North Carolina Chamber Music Institute's Chamber Music Treasures concert as a part of the Impact series on Monday, January 20th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. in the sanctuary of the Hayes-Barton United Methodist Church, located at 2209 Fairview Road in Raleigh, North Carolina. I hope to see you there. Thank you.